Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers following us online, welcome to our next debate on the topic diversity in the political representation. This is already our third debate in the series of Pride Awareness Program of Rainbow Platform and Friedrich Naumann Foundation, and I am honored to moderate this discussion today in Bratislava. My name is Barbara Krempaska, and I am working for the Friedrich Naumann Foundation as project manager in the office for Central Europe and the Baltic states in Prague. And I am focusing on Slovakia, Poland, and Slovenia. And today we will be speaking about Slovakia and Poland. And I am quite honored to welcome also our distinguished speakers here. First, next to me, Beata Jurik, a lawyer and board member of the Slovak Liberal Party Progressive Slovakia. She's also working in Brussels as political advisor for the Renew Europe group in European Parliament. And during the campaign in Slovakia, she is focusing on the topic of LGBTQI and gender representation. Next Slovak representative is Zora Jaurova, the co-founder and member of the board of the Progressive Slovakia, besides being an expert on cultural policy with experience in European institutions and an advisor to the mayor of Bratislava. And last but not least, Miloš Hodun from the Liberal Party from Poland, Nowoczesna, and he is also the president of the Liberal Foundation Projekt Polska and also a board member of European Liberal Forum. Thank you very much for coming and having us here. This discussion is pretty important because we are awaiting really important parliamentary elections in both countries, in Slovakia and in Poland. So to have an overview, which preconditions do we have in Slovakia and in Poland for liberal parties, I would like to start with a question: what is the situation with the LGBT community rights here in Slovakia? Zora, would you start, please, and describe the situation?
Well, I don't think we have enough time to go a little bit deeper in the situation, but maybe if I should say one thing about the situation, it is the fact that the attitudes of general public towards the queer people are not getting better over the time, but it is just the opposite. So basically, if we look at the last 30 years, we don't see much of a progress. I'm sorry to say this as somebody from the party called Progressive Slovakia, which was founded on the idea that the progress is possible and the world can get better. But all the data collected over the years are telling us that the attitudes towards the LGBTQ minorities are getting worse. For example, I have a couple of figures here. In 2008, 34% or 27%, it depends whether it was gay or lesbian couple, but the question they've been asked was, would you mind if your new neighbor was a gay or lesbian couple? And it's the survey which is being done periodically in Slovakia because it is a survey about all kinds of minorities. And so in 2008, it was 34, respectively 27% of people, while in 2017, 10 years later, it was 54, respectively 48% of people, which is almost twice as much as it was 10 years ago. And now, even I checked the Eurobarometer data, and in the survey, which was also going into attitudes of the general public in different European countries towards all kind of minorities or differences. Slovakia polled on the last possible place of the whole European Union, answering the question whether the queer people should have the same rights than heterosexual people. And it was 59% of people who said no, which is like the worst in European Union, and it was only 31% people who said yes. So there is also a lot of people who don't even know. And now, okay, the picture is gloomy, we experience it every day, but the question, of course, is why this is happening. And there is an easy and complicated answer to that, but I think the easy one tells you a lot about the background as well. And the easy one is that this topic is being heavily misused by different political groups and interest groups in the society as a political agenda, and they basically are looking for minorities as a target of their policies based on fear and hatred. And it's very, very good and sad example at the same time, on which you can clearly demonstrate then the topics featured by the leaders in the society are influencing the whole society quickly and profoundly. And very often, I read also a breakdown of those surveys, and very often when the same people who said, I don't want gay person as my neighbor, I am against the equal rights, when they've been asked why, very often they didn't have an answer. There was no answer to that question. It was all the answer was very general. So we can clearly see it based on like heavy data that the way the political representation is misusing this topic is influencing the general attitude, and it's making it worse.
Of course. Yeah, thank you very much for raising this point, because I also wanted to mention it on the very beginning that unfortunately the situation for the LGBT community in both of our countries, in Poland and Slovakia, is unfortunately not favorable at all. And as you said, unfortunately, politicians, populists are misusing this topic for years for fighting the political battles. So Milos,
maybe, and I would be happy to hear your opinion on that. I think it is important to mention the role of church, mainly the Catholic Church, in this topic, because I think there are a lot of similarities in Poland and in Slovakia, and you could see these tendencies also in other countries in Europe, but they have slightly different nature there. While in Slovakia and in Poland, this is heavily fed by the agenda of mainly Catholic Church, because the Catholic Church is the dominant church here. However, we also see now that the other churches are joining them.
And exactly. We had a situation where these topics were discussed in the church during the Mass. Yeah, so maybe Milos, you can tell us if it's similar in Poland, or how do you describe the situation in Poland?
Okay, thank you so much for the question and for having me here. It's a real pleasure, like always. And so the situation is similar, and I think that the big difference is that Poland is more in the spotlight because of many reasons. Because of the government Poland has had for the last 8 years, and because of some actions taken by this government and on the European level, but also on the national level. And there are some little propaganda things like LGBT-free zones that were adopted in some of the municipalities, counties, and regions, that are widely commented all over Europe. And just a side note, yesterday one of the very, very small communities decided to adopt such anti-LGBTQI declaration once again, even though the ombudsman, even though the courts are saying this is not legal, they decided to do it again. But actually, the court and the ombudsman, they have pretty good record of annulling most of them. So they win. The ombudsman is winning in the administrative court all the cases against this homophobic, transphobic declarations. But this is just a side note, and the situation in Poland is bad, and it's because of politics. So it's similar to Slovakia, and because the government, the Polish ruling party, Law and Justice, PiS, saw LGBTQI community as their easy platform to win elections. And it happened probably for the first time very visibly in 2019, and when they pick LGBTQI community as their main target. Because in the past they were choosing different communities, migrants. They were still attacking lawyers, but in 2019 they decided that the full frontal attack will be against LGBTQI people, and they used all the propaganda tools they had, all the ministers they have to attack this community, to spread hatred in the society, and the church was a big ally. In the Polish political context, there is a very close union between the ruling party and the church, and they both support one another. So the church is, in some cases, dictating the agenda of the ruling party, and the ruling party is actually implementing this agenda because they need the votes in the election day. So as Barbara said, in Slovakia, these topics are being discussed in churches. In case of Poland, many priests are saying directly during the weekend of the elections, you should vote for this person, for this list, and they are doing that. But also they want something, they want something back. So the anti-LGBTQI agenda of the government and the anti-abortion agenda of the government is the reward that is being paid to the church for their support. So there is a strong connection between these two organizations. If we look at the Polish context, so there's this hateful propaganda. We have ministers who are saying hateful words against LGBTQI. We have community. We have the state-owned TV that I don't want to call the public TV because it's not public anymore, that is broadcasting homophobic and transphobic videos, or like documentaries they produce themselves. Also just before elections, of course, also to spread the hatred and the fear. So you can see that the attitudes of the society are changing, and there is a big difference. After 1989 until 2015, we could see that the support for the community, but also for marriage equality, and especially for the civil unions, was growing all the time for this 25 years or so. And then the process was stopped in a way in 2015. So to be honest, we still see that the support for LGBTQI community and civil unions, civil partnerships is actually still growing. But now this growth is a bit different because we have a strong polarization. So we could see that people who were maybe somewhere between in 2015, now because this is a part of this cultural war, they had to decide they're in favor or against. So still the pool of people who support LGBTQI community, who are in favor of marriage equality or civil union, civil partnerships, is growing. But also we can see that this group of people who are against LGBTQI rights is also growing because it's being manipulated by the government and all its tools. So, but actually, if you look at data, majority of Polish people is in favor of civil partnerships.
Yes.
Majority, and this is very clear for years already. So it means that our political class is more conservative than the society. It's different in case of marriage equality. Here, it's probably between 35 and 45% of people who are in favor. The rest is rather against. But still, the numbers are also growing here. So this is one thing, is I think the public attitudes, and I think as I can see now, is a bit more positive or optimistic compared to Slovakia. The other thing is, if we look at laws, what has been adopted or in the Polish case, what has not been adopted. And we can use the Rainbow Platform ranking produced by and published by ILGA Europe every year. Poland, it's been our third year in a row when we scored the lowest number in the European Union. And,
even lower than Hungary.
even lower, yeah.
Wow.
In Hungary, they have Hungarians. They have the civil unions, right? Civil partnerships,
Okay.
and which helps a lot. And we don't have that, so nothing has been adopted. And it's not only criticism towards this government; it's also is the criticism towards previous governments when there was a momentum in the pre-peace government of doing something, but there were a couple of votes short in the parliament to adopt it. So basically, the laws of the community are not protected at all, and we are the worst in the EU on paper. But the attitudes are slowly changing. And I would like to mention one thing that I normally mention when discussing these topics is that the community itself, when they saw peace coming, started protecting itself in a way that is, I think, amazing and something that other communities that are being attacked could repeat, both in Poland and maybe also in the region, is that the community started self-organizing already in 2015, so a couple of years before the frontal attack came. And we had a new organization being created, both nationally and locally. Last year, we had around 27 Pride marches all around the country, which I find really important. So it's not only the Warsaw Pride, where this year we had, according to different data, between 70 and 100,000 people marching in Warsaw, but also we had marches in 27 other towns, including small towns, which is extremely important for the visibility and for changing the attitude, for showing, hey, we exist, hey, we are like you, and the city, the town belongs also to us. And I find it extremely important that these marches are being organized. These little groups are working and are being supported by local mayors, by local councillors. So I think, putting all this negative aspect of the Polish national politics, we're going all in all in a good direction as a society, and we need this political change on the top level also to give this push to take important changes in laws that the community is really looking forward. And it's not only about the civil unions, it's also about the protection against hate and many other discriminative laws.
Exactly, and that would be my next question, because you are the right persons to ask this question. What do we do about it? How do we change the situation? So you are now in the campaign, both parties. So I would like to ask, what are the key issues towards this topic in Progressive Slovakia and in Nowoczesna? Beata, you, Lucia, who was also supposed to discuss here, and Zora, you are part of the team, so-called Team for Equality in Slovakia, of Progressive Slovakia. So what is your program?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. I'm really happy and honored to be here with you today to discuss such an important topic, diversity in politics. I think that some might say that this is kind of privileged topic because we are talking about representation. So maybe for people in Slovakia, it's like the next step, because what we lack here is fundamental rights. LGBT community just doesn't have any rights. So we can have this criticism, but I think that both are connected. If we don't have LGBT people and women in parliament, then nothing will change. If we count on all these men who are already in parliaments for such a long time to have some kind of change, I think that it will never happen. So this is why I think that these topics are really connected, and it's really important to discuss the diversity. So concerning our campaign and the key topics, well, I would say that basically if there are no rights for LGBT people, what we want is simply equality and to give them rights that they deserve, because these rights are just fundamental. So, and this is why we have this group that you were talking about on equality. For us, equality, it means not only LGBT rights, but also gender equality and also religious neutrality, I would say. And yeah, for the moment, our program was not published yet, but I can already tell you 2 or 3 points that we will for sure put in. Of course, we want equality for same-sex couples and their families, because for the moment they have like zero protection. And maybe some might say that it's something abstract, but these are really concrete situations of people living with us, our sisters, neighbors, I don't know, colleagues. So it's really something concrete, and they just can't live their lives like all of us. And so when I heard some people saying that we want some extra rights for LGBT, I'm just like, you don't realize what is it to go to the kindergarten to pick up your son or your daughter, and you are just not his or her parent in eyes of the institution, or this kind of thing, like you are going to hospital to have some information about your partner's health, and you just can't access it. So it's really something basic. We are really talking about fundamental rights. So of course we want to not improve because there is no base, but we want to guarantee fundamental rights for LGBT community. So as I said, equality for same-sex couples and their families by adopting what we call life partnership, including also protection of children and their statutes. And we also want to seek for support to adopt marriage for everybody, or for all couples, not only for heterosexual couples, like it's the case for the moment. Other thing, we would like to propose a better protection for LGBT community against hate speech and hate actions, by adding reason of hatred based on sexual orientation, as well as for gender identification. Other thing is for trans people in Slovakia, which are facing maybe the worst situation. This is really the most vulnerable minority in Slovakia, I would say. We would like to put in place a smooth, quick, and administratively easy transition, so they can easily put together their gender identity with all official documents. Of course, this would be based on self-determination. Other thing concerning transgender people, of course, we would like to ask the state to apologize for forced sterilizations, because, as you know, this minority is the only minority in Europe who is still facing forced sterilizations. So not only apologies, but also some compensation, of course. So this is basically 3 topics among many others that we would like to propose.
And maybe I just add one thing, because you ask what can we do about it, and that's a good question and very difficult answer, because if we had it, we probably wouldn't have to talk about it here. However, I think, and this election term in Slovakia, it proved it very well, that at the end, it's again about who represents the people in the public offices, who are the people who actually lead the debate, and how they do lead the debate. And I think what can be done about it? People have to vote differently. Basically, this agenda, this kind of narrative, and this new language has to be represented in the parliament, in the government. It has to be represented not only by queer people, but by mothers, by people of different professions. It doesn't only have to be represented there by activists or by people who are queer, but it should be represented by us, heterosexual people, by economists, by different kind of professions. So we change the character of the debate, because, I mean, one day when I wrote the dissertation, it would be about how the language changed the world. We could see that so painfully in this election term, especially in the topic on LGBTQ, because we could see how the way they used a certain language on the topic has changed the attitude of general public, has created non-existing threats, has created like really aggressivity in the society. And the only solution for that is that those who are in charge, those who are leading the society, would represent different agenda. And I think that is why it is very important. Why is maybe even more important who are the people we are proposing to the list than the actual program, because program is important because they need to have some agenda, but I think sometimes it's even more important the way the people talk, the language they use, the words they use, the attitude they show, because that actually changed the mood in the society, that changed the emotion in the society, and we know that all the politics nowadays is about emotion.
Thank you very much for raising this point. This is actually the next point I would like to discuss. So let's give the floor for Nowoczesna now. What is the program of Nowoczesna? And my special question for you would be, you are a smaller party in a big coalition, a civic coalition. So are you able to push your LGBT agenda in this coalition?
Sure. We are a new party, established in 2015, relatively new party. But we've been lucky that for 8 years already we've been in the parliament. So our agenda for LGBTQI community, for gender equality, it's rather stable, I would say. So it's not, for these elections, we don't have to invent anything new. We're just basically supporting things that we've been doing for the last 8 years in the parliament. The bills that are ready and that we've already, most of them, all of them probably, we submitted in the Polish parliament. Of course, they got stuck there, but they were voted against by the majority. But we have ready bills on civil partnership, a bill against hate speech, also including LGBTQI community. We have a bill against the transition therapies. We have also agenda if it comes to easier transition procedures, because right now the legal procedure in Poland is humiliating to sue your parents in the court. So it has really destroyed links even in families that are okay, but you have to sue your mother and your father if you have them to the court to change your birth certificate. So our agenda and our proposals are very, very clear. In our first term in the parliament, 2015-2019, we're clearly the only LGBTQI-friendly party in the parliament, the pink party of the Polish parliament. Now it's a bit different because also the progressive left is in the parliament, so we kind of share part of this agenda, which is great because we have allies, and also LGBTQ people feel that they have more representation, both in the center and on the spectrum. And I think we compete, but also we talk about these issues. We co-created the intergroup for LGBTQI rights in the Polish parliament. So we are discussing these topics with other parties without any prejudices, just as people from members of parliament from different parties, they sit together and talk about these issues, which is very important. And but I also fully agree that the change of the language is very important, and the change of the attitudes and the change of thinking. So for us, education, I think the reform of education is one of the key elements to change the situation we're having now in Poland. So first of all, we say yes to sexuality education, which right now in Poland depends from which perspective you look at it. Does not exist is the one perspective, or exists in a form that is so ideologically loaded by the church and the conservative ideology that maybe it would be better if it was not there. We would like to have like a proper sexuality education based on science, based on evidence, and WHO standards. Additionally, we'd like to have an anti-discrimination education in schools. Maybe not as a separate subject, but as a part of civic education, sexuality education, and some other subjects we have already. So for us, this is really the key to change the education system, because currently school is promoting anti-LGBTQI propaganda. The Minister of Education in Poland is the most homophobic minister that we've had, and we have him right now. So he is the guy who is overseeing the schools, the teenagers who are super confused because of many reasons. Some of them, they are confused because of the age they are and the sexuality they are experiencing and their identity they're experiencing. And they have this minister and this superintendents who are telling them, you are bad people. You are sinners. You should not express who you are. You should just hide. And so for us, education is really the key. We need to change all these terrible things that this government has done to the Polish educational system, and we see it as a priority. So we, as a party, we are trying also to change. Since the beginning, we've been trying to change the language we speak, and by this change the language of Polish politics. So speak using language that takes care about diversity and inclusion. Be as inclusive as possible. Our party, since the beginning, had an openly gay person in a board, which was really something new for the Polish political scene. We had, of course, members of parliament before, mayors who were openly gay, but you could count them on with fingers of your one hand. And we were very clear in our first election in 2015 that some of our lead candidates were queer. And they were proud, and we were proud to have them, and we are still there. We're still trying to show this attitude that for us it's important what we speak, but also how we speak and who speaks it. So we are not saying anything we're saying in the parliament because we think it's right. We say it with the community. So our presence in the parliament was the constant discussion with LGBTQI groups inside the parliament. So, with our MPs, they got invitations to discuss their topics in the parliament. Also, I'm very proud that our MPs, they attend all these pride marches, because some of them, especially in smaller towns in the eastern part of the country, tend to be aggressive because there is more counter-protesters than actually pride goers. And our MPs are always there because they know that if they are there, more police will be there to protect the march goers, and also they will be there to take record and witness if necessary in the court about what happened in this march, who attacked whom, who really was the attacking part, and who was protecting themselves. So I'm very proud that our MPs are always there doing what, in my opinion, MPs should be with people, protect the rights of the people. And with your follow-up question, so about us being part of a broader coalition, yes, we are a very small party, but we are part of the second biggest right now, hopefully the first soon, in the polls bloc, that with the main partner of ours, the Civic Platform, which is a member of the EPP, so of the Christian Democratic family on the European level. And we've been in this coalition with them for 5-6 years already. We are co-ruling with them most of Polish cities and half of the regions. and everywhere we can, we push our agenda. So we see that they are changing. We see that their attitude is changing. Their leader of our bloc, Donald Tusk, said that that for him right now, civil partnerships and abortion rights is the bottom line. And this is something he wouldn't have said 5 years ago, probably. But so I feel, we played a role in that. Would I say we were decisive? No, probably not. There were more factors. But we were very consistent in pushing our agenda, both in the parliament, in the group where we sit together with our colleagues from other parties in the bloc, in the coalition, but also in local government. So I'm also very proud that two of my colleagues are what I would call equality officers of two biggest Polish cities, so Warsaw and Krakow. My colleagues from Nowoczesna, they take care of the equality treatment. So they create programs for minorities, including LGBTQI, but not only, so that their cities are more inclusive. And as you may know, in the Polish context, cities are crucial because they are still the islands of freedom. They are still cities are where most of the people vote for the opposition, and all the mayors, all of them, mayors of big cities, come from the opposition, and they create spaces of freedom. And I'm very proud that we can be part of it, and our people are pushing in the city councils on our agenda. They're convincing our own coalition partners that this is the right thing to do, this is the only thing to do, and we are being given the responsibility in some of the cities, including two biggest ones, to lead the change, to create more spaces for LGBTQI community, for women, but also for other minorities. So this will be also our agenda, our platform for next elections. And as I said, I'm really happy that we, as a coalition that may win these elections, will have a more progressive agenda on gender rights, more progressive than the biggest component of this coalition had only a couple of years ago.
Yeah. So I would like to now highlight the point you both mentioned, the language and the political representation, which is our topic today, that it is really important also in the topic of LGBT community, because what we are witnessing now in Slovakia is political battle, years-long process of spreading hatred, fear, and a lot of politicians brand themselves as barriers against LGBT community. They spread fear that they will destroy our future, our traditions, they endanger our children. And this hatred ended in a tragic murder of a homosexual couple here in Bratislava. And I hope, and I think a lot of people hope, that this would be a wake-up call for everyone and for our conservative government that, come on, we should do something about it and that we should change the narrative. But what happened was something else, as we know. On the one hand, there were a big wave of solidarity, but on the other, there were individuals who continued with their narrative, and for me, especially, the peak was the Facebook status of our former Prime Minister Igor Matovic, who wrote, I have to quote, "I am straight, I'm a man, and I feel like a man," etc. In the end, with the hashtag, "I am not ashamed of myself." This was
He should be.
Yes, he should be, of course. That's why we are speaking
Maybe
about
that's
it now.
why he need to emphasize it, because he knows he should be ashamed.
Yeah, this was just a few days after this murder. And after a lot of personalities started to come out on social media or started to support LGBT community. And there were also a reaction from European Parliament. European Parliament urged Slovak government to better protect LGBT community from crime of hatred. But what they did, they threw it out the window and they changed nothing. And after this murder, there were further attacks, as of some individuals were motivated by this attack. This is totally unacceptable, but we did nothing about it. So, Soraya, you partially answered this question, but how to change this society, how to change this narrative?
My understanding of what happened after the murder is slightly different. Because, yeah, it's everything you said, these are just facts. But at the same time, I think what it caused was this polarization you've been talking about.
Yeah.
That there was a large part of the society which didn't have an opinion really in these issues, because for years and decades we have been told by the politicians this is not important. We have to wait. We are now in the transformation process. We have to consolidate the economy now. We have more important tasks to solve. So queer people has to wait, and so on. And I think there was a large part of the society which didn't have an opinion, and they would say, I am not homophobic, but. And for these people, I think for a lot of them, this was a wake-up call. Of course, it was not wake-up call for anti-homophobic political professionals who are not, it's not about their own feelings, it's about their political agenda. And of course, it brought a lot of polarizations, because suddenly there were two dead people and you had to have an opinion on that. People have to have an opinion on that. And of course, it created a lot of like hatred and a lot of even like
Fudge attacks?
Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, I think, and I have even personal experiences with people like that, who would tell me, I never thought this is an agenda I should even think about, but now I have to stand on the right side. And okay, it's very tricky and sad to talk about positive effects of a murder, because you know, we don't want that, and these two people didn't deserve it. But at the same time, I think it brought also some kind of change in the landscape of opinions in Slovakia. However, we couldn't expect anything from this parliament. We know that it is the most conservative parliament we ever had. And it somehow happened, you know, that all these conservative people are there from different parties, you know. So it was naive to expect from them that they would change something in the legislation. But this memento will be there. It will be there. And I hope that that part of the society which had to form an opinion, which had to start to think about it, that they can make the change in the coming years. I hope they can make the change in the elections. And also, when this debate comes again, the public debate to the parliament, and it will be led by different people than those who've been talking about it up until now, then maybe the attitude of some parts of the society will show positive change. I hope for that, but I think it wouldn't happen. It won't happen without like politicians who would clearly represent this agenda and who would actually stand up for this minority, because we have a party in the parliament for 10 years already, which actually promoted itself since the very beginning as those who are the LGBTQ. They first time brought this agenda to Slovak politics 10 years ago, but they never did anything. And they would argue with you that they did, but they didn't. They were the first one to trade this agenda for economic policies or for whatever. And, you know, again, it's like who is in the lead, their behavior influences the whole society.
Exactly.
Because what they showed us is that this agenda can be traded.
Mm.
So what we are trying to do now is to show that, okay, we are not politically naive. We understand that if we will have the chance to be in the parliament and maybe in the government, we will have to negotiate with other parties. But at the same time, we cannot say we are, ready to trade this agenda. So I think this is also important, to be consistent in what we are trying to promote in the political scene.
And at this case, we can see that it is really important who represents us in politics. That's why we are speaking now about diversity, and we can agree that if we should guarantee the rights of LGBT, but also the rights of women, because in the 21st century we still have to apologize and to speak about place of women in politics. And that's why I would like to ask now about your candidate list, because Progressive Slovakia came up with a really exceptional 50-50 balanced, gender balanced candidate list.
It's actually not even 50-50.
Yeah.
It's 76 women to 74 men.
Wow.
So it's 50.7.
Nice.
So we are better than.
So Beata, could you explain how did you manage it? How to make a party, especially a liberal party, attractive for women?
Well, like you said, this is something really, let's say, historical success that no party achieved until now in Slovakia. And I was also looking in Europe, and I did not find something similar. So a party with more women on the electoral list than men. I think that it's not just a historical event for us, like for the party, but also for all women, because now they see that they can achieve it as well. They can be part of politics. They can change things that they care about by entering in politics. And to answer your question, well, I would say that it was a long process, but finally it was pretty short in Progressive Slovakia, because it all started 2 years ago when we in the feminist platform, because we have a feminist platform in our party, started to talk about quotas, but quotas for our executive board. And we made several discussions. We invited a lot of experts from Slovakia, but also from Czech Republic. And we really explained also to our members that if we want to promote equality in our politics, then we need to give an example. Then we need to apply equality also in our party. So we started all this process, and I have to say that at that time I was the chair of the feminist platform, but I had great allies in executive board, especially Zora and also Lucia, because at that time there were 4 women in the executive board 2 years ago, 3 or 4, and in the executive board before it was even worse. So we still had this problem of women who were not candidates for executive board, and then even less women elected for the executive board. So we started all this process of explaining things and discussing it. And sometimes it was really hard to discuss because, as you might know, a lot of liberals are afraid of quotas, because quotas are something described as something artificial, something bad that we used in history and it never worked No, this
Always
is not true. Yeah, because in all countries, when we see quotas in politics, it always works. So I don't understand this argument. But yeah, so we did all this, and last year in our congress we managed to have a 44.4 percent of women in our board thanks to quotas.
Mhm.
And I remember all medias the next day were talking about the dream team of Šimečka,
Mhm.
who was elected chair. And I think that it was also because they saw that it was not only a team composed both by women, finally, women and men, but also that all these women brought their experience, their stories, their all their skills to this board. And yeah, so this was really important. And also what I have to say is that since that moment, we had a great support in our direction. So, of course, in our chair, Michal Šimečka, who also chose Lucia Plavakova, which is openly lesbian women for his, let's say, right hand, because she's not only the vice chair of the party, but also the councillor. So this was also a really important step. And since this moment, we were also seen, I think, by society as a movement or political party for women.
Mhm.
We were also presenting a lot of topics for women, of course, because we as women were working on this. So on abortion, of course, we were defending the right to abortion against all these backlashes coming from ultra-conservatives, but also on other key topics, on social topics, etc., etc. So also women see us now as a movement or political party where women can succeed.
Mhm.
And so talking about quotas, I know that it's a, let's say, big word, but even some female politicians, who we cannot really consider as feminist, let's say, like, for example, Christine Lagarde or Angela Merkel, said that they never believed in quotas. But they were in politics for such a long time that they saw themselves that if we don't adopt quotas, then nothing will change, because there won't be a lot of seats for women in politics. Because who will do it? Men? They will give you a seat on the table? No, not really. We as women should take the seat, and also, I would say, give seats to other women. So this is exactly what we are doing in Slovakia. And this is also, all this process came up or resulted in our electoral lists today that we are really proud of. Because as we said, it's not only 50-50, it's 50.7. And it shows that we have a lot of very competent women in our party, women with stories, women with a lot of experience, and they are not like what we could read somewhere in some comments, like Šimečka found them on the stairs. No, all these women.
Somebody else did it.
Yeah. But all these women are really competent, and they deserve the place on the electoral list they have. So we are really proud of it. And now a lot of colleagues, international officers from other parties, are contacting me and asking, like, how did you do? Well, easy. You need quotas for executive board, then you need this and this and this, and then you just need the will to do it. This is the most important, I think. Like, if you decide that you want to put women on your list, then you just find women, you create the environment in your party to make it accessible for women, and that's it.
Yeah.
For us, it wasn't really hard to find 76 women, And all these people who are like surprised, or who say, oh, but now you are like putting out some really competent men and you put women on their seats just because of their sex.
Yeah.
They know nothing about these women.
Yes.
And I think that if someone just doesn't believe that we can find 75 or 76 competent women to enter politics, then they need to come to Progressive Slovakia, see them.
Yeah, but I think what is very important is what Bea mentioned about creating conditions, because I was a founding member of Progressive Slovakia, and I think the process started even much earlier than in the moment when we established the quota for the executive board. And it started in the very moment when we've been founding the party, because our party was not founded by one or few rich men. There were women from the very, very beginning. I was one of them. And it was only 8 or 10 of us at the beginning. The other one of the women there was the president of Slovakia nowadays, who is also a woman. So it started even at that moment that we have founded the party on very different values and on very different structure than it's normally done not only in Slovakia. I mean, this is the problem everywhere, that the parties are founded by rich men, because of course they have financial means to do that. So that's one thing I'd like to stress, because I think it is very important. And of course, I mean, then when we adopted quotas, a lot of those women, they've been in the party, could, show a bit better what they can do. And I think it was always successful. I find quite funny, to be honest, this whole debate about clash between the gender and the competence, that we are debating that we prefer the female sex over the competence. Well, I think if we would do that, then we applied basically equal criteria on everybody who is on the list, but I think we've been a bit more tender towards the men, because if we wouldn't, then the list would be much more feminine, to be honest. It's very funny that it is only mentioned in connection with women, that they are there because they are women and not because they are competent. But I mean, who is asking this about all these stupid, incompetent men? They sit in the Slovak parliament nowadays. Who is asking this about all the lists in the whole world? They are from up to down full of incompetent men. I mean, is there also a choice between competence and the gender? So this is what demonstrates why we need some kind of balancing measures. And of course they are just temporary, and I could already see it, that the very fact that we introduced this balanced list to this election, it really created a big debate about it. All the other parties, of course, don't have many women on their lists. The funny thing is that, for example, the Christian Democrats have more women than the liberal parties, but it created a totally new debate which we never had in Slovakia. And if only this debate would be the result of our list, it's already a big achievement, because suddenly we introduce some kind of benchmarks that will be there forever. And the debate is, and the whole what is thinkable has changed. The borders of thinkable have changed. And that's important. I think this symbolical value is extremely important. So I think we did it well.
I agree. Totally agree. Because we are running off time, I would like to ask Milos how it works in Nowoczesna, how the candidate list will look like.
I don't know that, and I think nobody knows that because it's a coalition, so
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
a bit different dynamics. So I can tell you how our list looked like before, and
What
And I-
Nowoczesna is thinking about quotas.
we've never had a discussion about quotas, to be honest, because and then I really identified with what Zora said about the beginning of the party and about the
Yeah.
fundamentals of the party. So it was a new generation of people. Nobody else was in national politics before. We had some people who were local politics, people who were entrepreneurs, people who came from NGOs. And there was a very new way of thinking about politics and about who should be in politics. And I think it was very clear for us since the beginning, for the party founders, for the first board, that we must have diverse representation. And now, if you ask me about quotas, I mean, I would rather not have them, but still have the great result. And this is where we went, I think. This was our way. Also, because electoral system is very different. Here, you have one list, right, in Slovakia. In Poland, we fight for seats in 41 multi-seat constituencies. So it meant for us that for a small party, we needed around 1,000 candidates all over the country. So, and there is the state, so there's the law, you need to have at least 35% of any of the gender on the list, right? So
That's the law.
that's the law.
Oh, okay.
So in the Polish context, we need to have 35%, let's say, in real life women. But of course, you can also not have lists with less than 35% men. So you cannot really have all women lists. This is by law. So this is something that we knew we had to have, and so 35% was that. And what was important for us in first elections, but also later in, for example, municipal elections or regional elections, is to have women really not as 50% on the list, but we cared about the positions that are, how we call it, electable. And in the Polish context, and especially for the context of a small party, it's number 1, 2, 3, and the last position of the list. So, right, you can have 40 names. So for us, it was the most important to have equal representation of gender on these key places, because this is the way people vote. 1, 2, 3, and the last, everybody else. Really, in again, context of a small party, has no chance to win a seat. But this is just a little comment. And what was the result? So in our first elections in 2015, we won 28 seats, half men, half women. And this is the result we wanted. Like, we were, then some other MPs joined, and they were men, so it was imbalanced, but still we were very proud. Our party, the board of the club, the presidium of the club in the parliament were 1 man and 5 women. And so we became a women's party in this sense. When we were bigger than we are now, and some research groups were making research about our electorate, they found out that 80% of our voters are women, because they see women who are representing them. And again, I would like to stress that they were all new in politics. So like none of these women were fantastic and are still fantastic, most of them in the parliament. They did an amazing job and really changed, I would say, also the perception of young, most of them are also young, but not all of them. But they changed the perception of a woman in Polish politics, like a newcomer who actually became a warrior of the opposition, because we became the warriors of the opposition, being very active and so on. When we ran again to the parliament, our representation was much smaller, because we won only 8 seats, 4 men, 4 women. And in the municipality, local, regional elections, of course, it's a bit different, because then you have to compare, county to county. But if you look at Warsaw, half men, half of our councillors in the city council of Warsaw and all the districts of Warsaw, half of them were men, half of them were women. So it just happened naturally, in the sense that really we feel this is the way you construct lists strategically so that to have equal representation. And I think it's very important that our party leader now, Adam Szłapka, who was since the beginning the Secretary General, he calls himself a feminist. So for him, this is important. So when you ask the question, who will give me the spot, a man? I think this is also very important that we choose also men to high positions who feel that this is an issue, right? Who are calling themselves feminists. They don't have to use this word if they don't like it, but who believe in equal rights. So I think we as a party were blessed. Also, our second leader was a woman. So we were really for party members, for party leaders, for the board. This was the natural way to do. What about now? What about next elections? They will be different, as I said, because we are again running in a big block. So we'll have 41 constituencies. Our block is already 4 parties. There will be many people also from NGOs who are not party affiliated. So it's something that has to be negotiated in 41 constituencies. So I cannot tell you right now if we'll for sure have 41 candidates. That's for sure. At least one candidate per constituency who will be fighting for a seat. And for us, it will be important that people who will be fighting for a seat will be both as equal as possible, men and women. We'll see how it will work out. But this is our, let's say, selection committee, and the board are looking for both men and women to represent us on tops of the list, let's say in top 5s, so that we can have, again, bigger than now representation, but as equal as it's now, so it's 50-50. Yeah, so I would say this is really the values that we are trying to live in and present them in real life.
So thank you. I wish you good luck, both of the parties for the next campaign. Thank you for sharing your experience. I indeed believe that a lot of parties in Europe could take inspiration from you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your attention. If you are interested how other parties in Europe are doing in political diversity, you can rewatch our videos from Vienna and Budapest. Thank you.